Hey, this is Sarah from the One Life podcast, and I want to give you guys a heads up that we did have a few technical difficulties in the episode that you're about to hear. Nothing that's going to take away from the great content that we're going to learn about the Unsettled Collective and Uncharted International from Emily Luttrell and Noah Gray. But about 16 or 17 minutes in, if you're watching this podcast, we did lose our video feed, and there are a few audio hiccups that make the sentences seem a little bit off, but ultimately the content is there, and it's a great opportunity for us to share some great things going on with Unsettled Collective. Hello, welcome to episode 38 of the One Life Church podcast, where we talk about things from One Life Church, but ultimately things we think can relate to you and your one and only life. My name is Sarah, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts and our lead pastor, Brett Nicholson.
Hi, Sarah. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Good to see you. It's been a long, from our end, it's been a long time since we've done this, so I'm really, truly glad to be here.
We got to pre-record a few, which was nice. Gave a little break around the holiday, and
very nice.
It was good.
And you carried all of that. I did none of it. Thank you.
It was fun. It was fun to edit those, especially when being able to split up some of those that were really good and split up the conversation into two parts and see a lot of value in that. So it's definitely fun. And today we are excited to be joined by some friends, Emily Luttrell and Noah Gray. What's going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
It's good to be here, Sarah.
Is it?
It's great.
Emily's so excited to be on the podcast. And they are going to be on here talking about the Unsettled Collective, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that is. But I want to just get to know you guys a little bit first. Emily, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm from Evansville. I grew up in Newberry, Chandler area. Went to school and came back. I gone to One Life East One Life for 7 years, I guess, since I've been back from school, and part of a worship team on the tech team, and help out with student worship team, help out with some of the art shows, film stuff.
It's fine.
Whoops. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because I was wondering the same thing. Like, did she say something that qualified?
Oh, no. For everyone wondering what just happened, because you probably can't hear it, my computer made a noise like, oh, it's done, like it's a toaster or something. So
I thought Emily said something wrong.
It's a button to let everyone know.
Slime is going to come over my chair now.
And Emily, you were an intern for One Life at one time.
I forgot about that.
No, I didn't.
Did you just block that out of your memory, or is it not good?
Well, she was fresh out of school, gave her launch.
I was
wherever
still
she
in
goes,
school.
Get credit.
Really?
Yeah.
You're still in school.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did an internship, and a lot of it was actually writing devotional content.
Really?
For a website that we made.
See, there you go.
Yeah.
That's right. We gave you your start.
Is it still on our website?
It is not.
I'll have to talk to whoever's in charge of that.
I think it might still be me, actually.
Really?
So, no, I
it's
don't
a
know.
separate website.
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to find it. The mystery we'll find.
Yeah. So, I've been a part of One Life for a long time. And now I work at Uncharted doing communication stuff with Noah. And most of my role there is kind of creating and managing the Unsettled Collective.
Cool. Which we will find out more here soon. But Noah, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. I'm from Evansville. I went to school at Ball State, came back, worked sort of in the financial sector for a little while. And then I'm now the director of communications at Uncharted. I work with Emily on a lot of things. And I kind of just manage the overall communications plan and stuff for Uncharted. I'm also one of the worship leaders at One Life East. So been kind of around the One Life orbit for, I don't know, a while. 7 years, but probably.
Did you come at the very beginning? Were you here at 10-10-10?
I wasn't here at 10-10-10. I was at school.
Oh, okay.
But I did, when I would come back, I would come to One Life.
Oh, okay.
But not here on the day.
Right. But you were here pretty much from the beginning.
Kind of around people.
So we can take credit for giving you your start as well. Okay, that's
whatever
I'm just going to keep
Emily and Noah and I worked on a few films together, One Life Films for projects, and it was always fun, kind of just figuring out. I didn't know what I was doing, I'll be honest. It's like
what I was doing.
Yeah.
But it was fun. We were always just like, okay, I'll go grab that, set that up.
I don't think anybody did. I think we were all faking it and like, I don't know how this one's going to turn out.
At the end, we had a film.
So.
I was sure Noah knew what he was doing because he had like the boom mic and headphones.
He had a boom mic.
Yeah.
When you put gear on, it makes it look like you're important.
It worked, apparently. For Sarah, she was like, no one knows what he's doing.
I remember the first time.
That's basically what I still do. I just figure it out.
I understand.
I think the first time I met Sarah, she was producing for the Financial Zombies videos.
We were at the Alhambra Theater.
Filming at the Alhambra, and their responsibility to kind of corral people. And it was freezing cold.
Really,
and no one was having a good time.
yeah.
That sounds
But
right.
the member was amazing.
It was.
Financial
It was still
Zombies.
funny to watch.
Financial Zombies is one of the classics that people still talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the proof.
Yep.
Right. So you mentioned Uncharted. Can one of you, maybe Noah, tell us a little bit
Sure.
about what Uncharted is? And
Yeah.
if you're not familiar with it, you can go to unchartedinternational.org, find out a little bit more, and also know Uncharted.
Yeah. So Uncharted is a missions organization headquartered in Evansville. And that kind of expression of missions shows up in different ways in different communities. So currently we work in Myanmar and Central Asia. We're exploring some work and moving toward launching in Serbia. And then we're always kind of looking at new places. But, you know, depending on the location, mission work looks really different. So the programs and the things you can do in Myanmar, obviously you have to change for Serbia and you have to change for Central Asia. But we take teams and over for short term. We also hope to one day send some long-term cross-cultural workers to live on the ground to do mission work. And it's been really cool to work for Uncharted and to see kind of how God is moving all around the world, how God uses the experiences Uncharted can offer to move in people's lives. I know Brett's been on several trips, and I know Emily's
I was on a
able to
trip
go.
with you this time last year.
very true.
Yeah, we went to Serbia together and Paris. So they throw that in with
And
all the
Paris.
trips people would go.
It was croissants.
They would. That's right.
But the Paris part was really a cool opportunity to come from Belgrade, where we were exploring opportunities, to go to a context where we could actually see the mission work being done. And like the experiences we had at a community center where we were doing English language conversations and being able to kind of take the theoretical, this is what it could look like, and apply it to the practical, this is what people do in contexts like this. And so, it was fun, but it was also
absolutely. Yeah, it was.
practical as well.
I tell people that, and they look at me like, "Oh, you did a mission trip in
you were in
Paris, right?" Yeah.
Paris.
Well, the whole premise behind Uncharted has always been to go to least reached places, and we were exploring Paris, but for that reason, though, that the actual exposure to the gospel itself is extremely low there, and so we only look at countries like that. So that was important to note about those things, and that's why Central Asia and Myanmar. So that's kind of one of the first vetting processes is at least reached, and then it's partners with churches, so teams can go out and go to places like this and not have to come up with their own missions programs. Kind of the idea around Uncharted.
Our apologies for technical difficulties there. The computer decided it wouldn't work. So we're going to continuing the conversation. We talked a little bit about what Uncharted is, but now we want to kind of shift the conversation and talk about Unsettled Collective and what Unsettled Collective is and why it exists and what its purpose is. And so, Emily, would love for you to tell us a little bit about what Unsettled Collective is.
Unsettled Collective is really a resource of discipleship content. And right now that kind of looks like devotionals and other like discussion questions or prompts in order to push people into living a brave faith or kind of stir things up when maybe they've been settled, hence the name Unsettled, or complacent in their faith.
Awesome. And the collective side, I know it sounds like on your website you talk about artists being able to kind of join in and be a part of this. What's that kind of look like?
Yeah. So there is, an artistic creative element to the stuff that we do now. There's a lot of written content, visuals. I think I'm going to have to, I have to like think about things before I can say them. Sure. So there might be like long pauses where I'm just processing. So one thing we really wanted to make happen when we created this was to make it's not just one person sitting around kind of giving content or teaching people what to do. It's meant to be a discussion. And that means other voices are going to come in and be heard. So the collective part really is it's not just me sitting behind a computer making things, but there's a group of people. There are other stories that need to be told and heard. And art comes into that because I think, to me, one of the things that's most important for me whenever I'm creating content for Unsettled is I never want to tell people what to do or kind of instruct them how to live, but I want to guide them and kind of put them in a place where they have to think about it for themselves and kind of learn how to discover things about faith and learn how to draw their own conclusions in a way. And I think art is really powerful way to help people do that. Paintings and music, they don't, if some of them do, most of them don't tell you what you're supposed to be feeling.
Sure.
Or show you kind of something that is right or wrong, but they lead you to a place where you have to think about it and process it. And so I think having a really creative artistic element in the Unsettled Collective is a part of how we kind of see that happen.
So can you give like an example of how that fleshes out? And if I want to go to this and I want to participate in it, what does that look like? This is an example.
Yeah, well, if you just want to kind of be a part of the discussion, all of the content that we have now is being posted on Instagram. So we're on social media, and that has devotionals, and it has questions, and some people can participate right there in the comments, and some people do. They want to talk about it, and they want to respond that way. Other people kind of reach out and want to contribute. So I've been talking to some people who are writers and they want to come in and say, hey, I'd love to write a devotional. Or people who are photographers have contributed some of their images that we can pair with content. And we're actually right now in the process of making films. So we're going to kind of create an artistic, more narrative short film, but also have films of people's stories, people who are living a brave faith or people who are struggling to live a brave faith. And kind of use those elements as a way to continue those conversations.
Okay, that's amazing. And as I'm reading on unsettledcollective.com, which is the website, you can find out more information there. I assume you wrote this because it has your name after it. Says content manager. Says that our goal is to create bold and at times subversive discipleship content that will encourage people in faith while also provoking them into action. To do this, we create artistic devotional material for individuals, groups, and teams that spark discussion and challenge our perception of what Christianity is and what church should look like and who is welcome at the table, which is basically everything you just said in a lot more detail. And I love that. But I wanted to make sure that we got the website in there so people can find that information as well. And you mentioned the devotionals and mentioned obviously the art and some of those things on there, but also on Instagram. So you say people are you're sparking conversation even just in social media posts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that kind of was the idea from the beginning, was to create a brand that lives mostly on social media that engages these kinds of conversations. Because social media, that's like where people are.
Right.
And a lot of times that's where they're having the conversations anyway. So we wanted to be a part of that. And as it's kind of still being creative, this is still like a new thing that we're figuring out. We're kind of learning where things want to go. So we created a website that's like a more permanent, shareable home for some of the content that can exist in a longer form and is a place where we can have the films that we've made live, and also a place where we can have like a devotional series where people can go and download and use on their own or in groups, rather than just have to follow on a social media platform.
Yeah, I think I guess one question I would have is you've used the phrase living a brave faith, and where'd that come from? What is that, when you say that, what does that mean?
It's a great question.
It is a great question. And
she's got
to pitch to the communications director. Who
no, why don't we ask you that question?
Well, the good thing is she is the one that manages all of the content for Unsettled Collective.
Oh, okay.
We've been in like active discussions about that term, brave faith, and what that means. Right. Kind of the initial idea was what this Unsettled Collective started as, was a pitch to kind of shake people out of that sort of Western kind of lazy status quo. This is fine. I'm good. I've got this mentality, and encourage people to step out of the comfort zone and to say, that living that way is fine, but I want to, as an expression of my faith, step out a little bit farther. And that can be an expression, can be, going overseas on a mission trip, or it can be, inviting your neighbor over for dinner, or it can be, there's a guy who actually does it just down the street from here, standing on the side of the road with a sign, like encouraging people to have a good day. I don't know if you've seen him.
He just stands out there. I didn't know where he is.
He kind of stands underneath the expressway, right, and he has a sign, and I don't know all that it says because there's a lot on it. Design 101 is
most of us have seen signs on the road, and they're not typically have a nice day.
He's standing there, and he's like kind of dancing around, waving at people, and his kind of whole thing is making people, is encouraging people that are just driving past.
His own. He's not saying go to the local shoe store like a lot of.
He's just doing his own thing. And
I need to look for that now.
Yeah. So and that was the initial kind of idea that started this. It was, we even threw around the idea of using Brave Faith as the name, and then decided, well, let's go a different direction. And I don't know.
That was a good call.
Yeah,
I think.
And you both have talked, obviously you both work for Uncharted. How is Unsettled Collective part of Uncharted? Is it a separate organization? I think that's a question people might ask. Is it, obviously you both are doing stuff with Unsettled as well.
Yeah, it's not a separate organization. And right now I would say it's really, so Uncharted's kind of tagline is helping people do brave things to advance God's kingdom all over the world. I'm really proud that I remember
that. You got the mission statement.
Right. Nailed it. Please tell Ben Stewart that I got
We'll send him this when it's over.
Yeah. So Unsettled Collective is kind of the first part of that, which is helping people do brave things. So it is like the target audience is people who are Christians, probably people who may not be super active in their faith. But what we want to do is fulfill Uncharted's mission of, we want those people to step out and live more deeply and be able to accomplish things for the kingdom. And part of that is helping them become brave.
So do you guys have, either one of you have like a favorite example of kind of either the discussion or somebody presented an idea like the guy standing with the sign but that came through in the devotional material that people turned in?
There is one guy we have featured sometime last year. I got to sit down and talk to him, kind of like interview him and get some photos and post them up. He is basically a mentor to young adults, young men more specifically. And he just has them come live in his house, and they hang out and they read the Bible and talk about it. And he does that for guys for a weekend, or I think he says they're not allowed to stay past 6 months. He's like, it's not
probably learned in the School of Hard Knocks too, I'm thinking.
Yeah. It's like, it's not a permanent thing. It's not a solution to them. But he's like, whenever he was younger, he had a mentor who really profoundly affected him. And he's like, well, there's a need for this. Like, people are reaching out and they want guidance and they want help, especially young people. It's like, so I can open up my home. And last time I talked to him, the plan was when he retires, they're going to build like a farm out in Boonville and have just dorms, and people can come stay and like work at the farm and just hang out and talk. And
wow.
Yeah.
And a great example of, obviously Uncharted they got the idea from challenging people to go on trips and go to places like Myanmar or wherever. But that's a great example of what you're getting at. This is someone that didn't necessarily go overseas, but they invite someone in their home, which for a lot of us, that would be a brave thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, it can look like taking a trip to, a country that is not recommended to go to by the United States government, or it can be doing something in your own home, in your community. And both of those things, for a lot of reasons, can be incredibly brave.
On the art side, you said you have photographers. There are people who have done paintings or things that they take pictures of that and send it in. You seen any?
Not yet.
Yet?
That is my goal. It's one of my dreams. Okay. Yeah. So if you are an artist, please, you can go to unsettledcollective.com and send me an email.
Turns to camera.
Well, Yeah, that's right. Well, some people might not have known that was
Yeah.
even an option, or I'm assuming maybe original music. You could record a song, and there's a way to post that. And
Brett's creating so many things for you guys right now.
that's right. I may be doing this myself.
Are you interested in writing some
I'll go
music
under a
for us?
pseudonym and write a song
There we
and
go.
send it in, and maybe you'll never know who it was. But yeah, just when you talk about the arts, where does it expand into, and is there a way to do that? Because I know many artists would like to contribute, but they don't know how. But
we threw collective in the title on,
Right.
for a reason. We always saw this as something that could be a large group of people throwing into this expression. And I kind of managed this earlier on when Emily was not around, and I did not do as great of a job at it. But we've always wanted different things more than just photography. But so yeah, paintings and film and I think both of us would love to see a day where there are even like narrative stories that are being told through either writing or photography, and being able to sort of drive a visual story through still images, and that would be a really cool thing to partner with people. Either, hey, I would love to take photos for you guys, how can I help? Or here are a bunch of things that I've been working on, and I think that would fit. Both of those would be.
Well, help me get real practical in terms of how it would work. Okay, so you pose questions on the site.
On the Instagram.
On the
generally,
Instagram.
yeah.
Okay.
Just,
So you go on
just
Instagram.
Unsettled Collective, search for that.
Yeah,
you
the
can find
Instagram
it.
is Unsettled Collective.
So if I see the question, I want to answer it, I can answer it and post a short film on there in response to that. This is my answer to your question, or this is what inspired me.
Sure. You can answer in the comments as like a very straightforward, hey, here's what I think about the thing you answered, or posting it on social media as a response, or sending it to us and kind of saying, here's something I made and here's why I made it. And then we could pair that with content, or just post it on its own. So there's a lot of kind of creative freedom that comes with creating something entirely brand new, which is exciting and intimidating and hard, but fun. And I think we know who we are, and we know more than we did last year, but we're still kind of open and excited to see what kind of happens at the end of the year or next year.
And each month, right,
Yeah.
is kind of divided into a new theme or category, and that inspires all the content that Emily's writing, or even down to the visuals and the devotionals she's putting together. So they're grouped into an idea. And so the beginning of whatever month is actually would be a great time if you're checking out the Instagram to say, oh, I think I could throw into that. That's a perfect time to do it, because that's a new theme that's being launched. But if somebody were to send us something at the end of the month, say, I've been working on this.
So
Love to
give
see
me an
those
example of a
things.
theme that you've had in the past.
Yeah. So, like the downloadable PDFs we have on our website right now are kind of collections of the content we've been posting on social media within that theme. So there's some like begin, which is about how do you start something or move into what God.
That's the one I read. Yeah.
There you go. It's like exploring this idea of how do you move into something God may be calling you to do when you feel like you are not equipped to do it. There's another one we have about mystery, which is kind of grappling with the unknowableness that God has with his holiness. This year, I've been kind of working each month focused on one of the fruit of the Spirit. So right now I'm working on self-control, like both personally and with content.
Say, how you doing with that? Is that going pretty good?
It's not one of my favorites to write about.
Well, it's no one's favorite to read about it either, I think. That's kind of how that works.
So
Thank you for letting us know what we should expect in terms of response.
That's right.
right.
No one wants
Your
to write.
numbers
Actually,
take a dive.
The most engagement we've had this year so far has been about patience and suffering, actually, and
Interesting.
kind of how do you endure something when there's not necessarily going to be like a light at the end of the tunnel, or what do you say to somebody who is kind of going through
that's been one of my favorite things to read through on social media are the lines that you're posting that are probably not the best things to say to somebody who's hurting.
Right.
And actually what's really cool is watching people respond to that. Not only liking the content, but saying, I've been in those situations or those experiences where somebody said, you'll get through it, or some, platitude that everybody says that don't really fit.
Yeah. Before I started posting content for that month, I posted a story and asked people, like, what's something someone has said to you that was maybe good intentioned, but did not help at all. And tons of people responded with different variations on, like, everything happens for a reason, which is the most popular response.
Brett told me that this morning.
Right.
Sorry, Sarah. I meant well.
Yeah. So
it was Sarah that sent that one.
That's fun.
Yeah. So it's exciting to see people engage, but also really interesting that is kind of what calls to people.
So for you, Emily, I'm curious, as a creative, what do you enjoy the most about doing this? Like, what is fun for you? Because I know that there's some of that there that you love to write, but in general, like, how is this something kind of feeding into what you love creatively? I didn't send you that question.
That's good.
I didn't send you that question.
I was not briefed on this. It's kind of funny because as a creative person and a writer, like, I consider myself like a creative writer and not necessarily a teaching kind of writer. I think most creative people will kind of hopefully understand me when I say, like, there isn't parts of it that I find fun necessarily. It's good and I'm glad to do it, but creating things is really hard. So I think the fun kind of comes in when I get to dream of what it can become and think of what I want to spend next month kind of talking about. And I do really enjoy kind of taking a theme and pairing it with visuals and kind of creating a whole look or like a complete idea of something. But it's really hard. And there's a lot of times when you're creating something when you're like, I don't actually know if this is any good. Yeah. Like, I've been looking at this for so long that I can't tell anymore.
Yeah. And you said mystery was one of your favorites.
Yeah.
What about that one made it one of your favorites?
That was one of my favorites to write because I think it is the thing that I respond to the most. I really appreciate that I can't know everything there is to know because I know the limitations of my understanding, and I'm really relieved that I believe in something bigger than that I can understand. And I think that just kind of fills me up in a way, like experiencing awe and feeling small in a good way, not in kind of a demeaning way. That is something that I, in my personal faith, something I've always appreciated and kind of found comfort in. And so creating content around it, finding quotes that go with it, and reading the verses that I've included, that is kind of really fulfilling for me because it was something I was really excited about and wanted to share so that other people could kind of get excited about it too.
Yeah. So would you say that's kind of the vision, have you both answer this question, the vision of who you see utilizing this and how you see them utilizing it? I know you've said that in a lot of different ways, but like, is there a grander vision of something that you'd say, man, we really hope that, you know, this content turns into this and people use it this way?
It's already morphed so much from where it was in the beginning. I walked into this idea when I started at Uncharted. We got this grant and Ben's like, here you go. Cool. Okay, how do we do this? So it's been great to watch it morph. It's been great to see us kind of do the what ifs, like what if we did this and what if we had this, and actually to sit down and make those plans. And I feel like every time the audience for that changes and moves. And but I would love to see a day where the Instagram or whatever social media platform is being used and utilized for discussion, and that there's like healthy as much as internet discussion can be healthy, discussion about this or answers to these questions from a lot of people on social media. And that points them to the website, and people are using these devotional pieces that we're putting together, that Emily's putting together, in their groups and teams, and sitting at the dinner table or when they're hanging out with their friends, and they're like, well, let's just
so what do you guys
ask this
think about
random
suffering
question.
in the world?
Oh yeah, that would be a great one. Yeah,
a great
go for that
icebreaker,
one.
yeah.
But there are times though, like as I'm scrolling through social media or Instagram, like something pops up and it turns into something like, I want to ask someone else about that. And I assume that's probably the idea, the vision of what you're hoping is that if I see a post about like, what are some things that people have said to me that didn't help, then I sit around maybe even with my team here and like, what's something somebody said to you? And it just sparks a conversation based upon just an image or a few words.
Yeah, I kind of hope with the social media posts that they interrupt people in a way, because you kind of don't really expect difficult questions when you're scrolling through your feed.
Right.
And I kind of,
That's a good point.
I kind of want to
Depends
like,
on what your feed is, but yeah.
I guess that's true. Yeah, but I kind of just want to make people stop or do a double take and kind of recognize that there's a weird juxtaposition between like these ideas and difficult concepts that are kind of like the most important thing to figure out. And then you're kind of daily like, I'm just going to scroll through Instagram, look at pictures of my friend's dog, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a cool juxtaposition with what are typical like Christian quote card Instagram things that are nice and flowery and sunny,
Right.
and we're like posting really tough questions about suffering, and
Good.
in the same sort of vein of like, how do you
Hopefully still looks.
how do you respond
yeah.
to this as a Christian? It looks great.
Yeah.
Maybe not always sunny.
No, that's good
clouds.
Because if you bother to read your Bible occasionally, you find it's not that way either. I mean, you get in there and you can read some really, really dark stuff, which is I think it's a dimension of our faith we leave out a lot, is the darker things, the mysterious thing. And I love the fact that you've incorporated the art piece into it. That I would assume that the mystery topic, especially, or the suffering one, also elicited some art that was moving in some ways. Or that song that I'm going to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for
We're waiting
your
for it.
It's going to be
contribution.
all bass
Just
and bass
bass
solo.
solo.
Yeah.
the
12 minutes.
Yeah, 12-minute bass solo. There
Perfect.
you go. That's right.
We'll put it on our website.
On suffering.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had some people reach out and want to contribute with written words. And I think probably because that is the most obvious way people think they can contribute. But I mean, my dream is that all kinds of artists and all kinds of creative people feel like they can belong to in a communal way and participate, and that every type of media is important and has a strength in communication, and that it should be utilized.
I think that's probably my biggest takeaway as I'm, still learning what Unsettled Collective is and kind of the vision and the purpose behind it, is that it is a collective, and that's kind of your vision for it. I think that's really exciting to think of creatives being able to say, I kind of want to throw into that conversation or be a part of it. And maybe I'm sure you're going to get things. I don't know how you're going to do that, but I might write something, you guys, this is terrible. We're not going to use that, Sarah. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But like, there's this whole idea still of putting yourself out there as a creative that I think most of us would say. I'd say I'm a creative. Most things I create, I don't like.
Yeah.
But then every once in a while, there's something you're like, okay, I want to send that out. Or even sending it and just building some confidence on that. So I think that's something I'm really excited, just even learning and being able to share with people that is an idea for them to be able to be a part of. And so sending them to the website, unsettledcollective.com, there's a page there to join the collective.
And if you are an artist, you always need to remember, Dorothy Sayers talked about, it's a process that includes the interactive piece with the audience. You have to include that or you're not really being an artist. So that's what Dorothy would say.
I think I've used a Dorothy quote before.
Really?
Yeah, you better
That's
have her. Yeah, I mean, come on now.
Wow, that was good.
right.
I think that's probably a good way to end right there, just on the Dorothy Sayers quote.
Dorothy Sayers quote. There you go.
Again, so the website is unsettledcollective.com. Instagram is Unsettled Collective, and you can join and check that out right now. Join, be a part of it, and just see the content that's coming up and being able to ask questions and be a part of the conversation. So thank you, Emily and Noah, for coming on and give us a little information about
Thanks for
Unsettled.
having us.
Thanks for having us,
Yeah,
Sarah.
you guys did a great job.
Thanks.
This is fun.
I'm like really sweaty.
Emily was nervous. She did a
was
great
really
job.
nervous.
She's got a lot of great information in there. Again, I apologize for the little technical difficulty, but it's the first one we've had. So
You recovered nicely.
thanks. I
Good.
appreciate it.
38 episodes in. You only had one. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
We had
that
one
is-
other one when you were out of town, and we tried
okay.
to video you in. You remember that?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was fun.
It was one long tech
Yeah,
glitch. Yeah,
yeah.
I remember that very well.
But we got it. We got it.
You did.
So, Brett, anything to kind of close with as we move on through the next into the summer?
Yeah, at One Life, we're the last 2 summers we've done the Psalms. We've been studying the Psalms, and in this we're going to do the same again here in a couple of weeks. We're going to start, and we're calling it soundtrack, and but it's going to parallel with the life of David. We're going to study the life of David, and then also because there's a few Psalms that have little titles in them. It'll say when he was in the cave hiding from Saul or something like that. We're going to explore those in his life, couple them with his songwriting, so it'll have an artistic piece. And I think that bass solo is going to come out during this. Yeah, during
might.
this
Just
series.
you
I mean,
in the middle of a message.
that's right.
Just going to grab the bass that's on
That's
stage.
right. And see how long I can do it before people
think you
start
should.
just wrestling and leaving or doing something.
I think you should read a psalm while you're playing bass. I mean, it just
I'm on
turns
it.
into
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
Yeah.
This leads me to a question to close. I haven't done a question to close in a while, and I want to do one. If you guys were picking like a song that, like one of your favorite soundtrack songs, doesn't have to be the favorite, but one of your favorites, what would it be?
Soundtrack song.
Yeah,
Like
a
from
song.
Or just a
From a soundtrack,
soundtrack
yeah.
of a movie.
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't have to be the whole album. Just like one of the songs. Is there one that jumps out immediately? Nobody's got one.
Oh no. This is it's
It's a lot of Disney movies.
there are a lot of Disney movies. Yeah. You would call Madison on that one.
There it
and-
goes.
Yeah, that's
Both.
right. Yeah, you have to name a Disney movie. I know there's a piece in Lord of the Rings where where they're in Rohan, and I think it was right after they buried the son, and there's this violin piece that happens during that always gets me every time. But the whole soundtrack of that movie, I think, is brilliant.
That's probably a pretty solid choice. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
I know for
of course.
Emily for sure.
Yeah, I feel that resonates with me. I think my favorite like use of a song in movie might be in The Royal Tenenbaums, which is
Okay.
kind of like a weird movie. They play Hey Jude. And I believe it's while he's like releasing his falcon pet, and it's just like flying over New York, and Hey Jude plays, and it's just a very beautiful moment.
I think I saw that years ago. I need to watch it again because
Wes
that's
Anderson.
Okay.
my
Yeah,
guy.
that's a good one.
I don't know if I have.
Anything come to
I'm
mind,
trying
Noah?
to think of one. I mean, I love Ramin Djawadi, who does the scores for like Westworld and Game of Thrones. The way he uses themes within his scores is just remarkable to me. So, throughout an 8-season series, he'll have these little tags and themes that will play throughout that give you little cues as to what's kind of happening, or themes that are just devoted to one character, and you hear it and there's sort of a sense of nostalgia. So
Yeah, absolutely.
and they're
Goes with.
big and cinematic and beautiful, and so
Very cool. Very
So
cool.
which Disney movie did you come up with?
Well, if there's a lot I could choose from, and there's probably many I will say throughout the series, but the first one that always comes to my mind is Eye of the Tiger. Sorry, it's just like you play Eye of the Tiger, and I'm ready to go. Like it gets me
That's right.
pumped
You
up.
mentioned soundtrack. That is the
There we go.
soundtrack song.
Eye of the
That's right.
Tiger.
it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the One Life Church podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and subscribe. That way you'll get an alert anytime there's a new episode. If there was something that you heard that you really want other people to know, share it out on social media. You can use the hashtag #OLPodcast. To ask us a question here at the podcast, you can email us at podcast@onelifechurch.org. I'm one of your co-hosts, Sarah Inman, and I produced this episode. Our music is produced by Micah Robertson and Ben Brock.